Hi, Idealistas. This is Mrs. Hunsaker. I'm going to be reading pages 515 to 519. I know our exit tickets say that you only need to read 517 to 519 and respond to it. So if you only want to respond to those two pages, that's fine. If you want to respond to all of them, then you can do that too. We just finished reading the part where Ron and Lavender have broken up, Dean and Ginny have broken up, and Harry had just told Ron and Hermione all that happened in Dumbledore's office with the talking about Voldemort, okay, and the Horcruxes. So we're on the top of page 515. It says, "Of course, this puts you in a bit of a dilemma, doesn't it?" said Hermione. "What do you mean?" said Harry quickly. "The Quidditch team," said Hermione. "If Ginny and Dean aren't speaking." Oh yeah," said Harry. Flitwick," said Ron in a warning tone. The tiny little Charms Master was bobbing his way toward them, and Hermione was the only one who had managed to turn vinegar into wine. Her glass flask was full of a deep crimson liquid, whereas the contents of Harry and Ron's were still murky brown. Now, boys," squeaked Professor Flitwick reproachfully. "A little less talk, a little more action. Let me see you try." Together they raised their wands, concentrating with all their might, and pointed them at their flasks. Harry's vinegar turned to ice. Ron's flask exploded. "Yes, for homework," said Professor Flitwick, re-emerging from under the table and pulling shards of glass out of the top of his hat. "Practice." They had one of their rare joint free periods after Charms and walked back to the common room together. Ron seemed to be positively lighthearted about the end of his relationship with Lavender, and Hermione seemed cheery too, though when asked what she was grinning about, she simply said, "It's a nice day." Neither of them seemed to have noticed that the fierce battle was raging inside Harry's brain. "She's Ron's sister. But she ditched Dean. She's still Ron's sister. I'm his best mate. That'll make it worse. If I talk to him first, he'd hit you. What if I don't care? He's your best mate." Harry barely noticed that they were climbing through the portrait hole into the sunny common room, only vaguely registering the small group of seventh years clustered together there, until Hermione cried, "Katie, you're back! Are you okay?" Harry stared, and indeed, Katie Bell, looking completely healthy and surrounded by her jubilant friends. "I am really well," she said happily. They let me out of St. Mungo's on Monday. I had a couple of days at home with Mom and Dad, and then came back here this morning. Leanne was just telling me about McLaggen in the last match. Harry..." "Yeah," said Harry. "Well, now you're back and Ron's fit, we'll have a decent chance at thrashing Ravenclaw, which means we could still be in the running for the cup. Listen, Katie." He had to put the question to her at once. His curiosity even drove Ginny temporarily from his brain. He dropped his voice as Katie's friends started gathering up their things. Apparently, they were late for Transfiguration. "That necklace. Can you remember who gave it to you now?" "No," said Katie, shaking her head ruefully. "Everyone's been asking me, but I haven't got a clue. The last thing I remember was walking into the ladies in the Three Broomsticks." "You definitely went into the bathroom then," said Hermione. "Well, I know I pushed open the door," said Katie. So I suppose whoever imperisued me was standing just behind it. After that, my memory is blank until about 2 weeks ago in St. Mungo's. Listen, I better go. I wouldn't put it past McLaggen to give me lines, even if it was my first day back." She caught up her bag and books and hurried after her friends, leaving Harry, Ron, and Hermione to sit down at the window table and ponder what she had told them. "So it must have been a girl or a woman who gave Katie the necklace," said Hermione, "to be in the ladies' bathroom." "Or someone who looked like a girl or a woman," said Harry. "Don't forget, there was a cauldron full of Polyjuice potion at Hogwarts. We know some of it got stolen." In his mind's eye, he watched a parade of Crabbe and Goyles prance past, all transforming into girls. "Griffin, please stop." I think I'm going to take another swig of Felix, said Harry. I have to go to the room of requirement again. And have a go at the room of requirement again. That would be a complete waste of potions, said Hermione flatly, putting down the copy of Spellman's Silbury. Hey, no candy. She had just taken out of her bag. Luck can only get you so far, Harry. The situation with Slughorn was different. You always had the ability to persuade him. You just needed to tweak the circumstances a bit. Luck isn't enough to get you through a powerful enchantment, though. Don't go wasting the rest of that potion. You need all the luck you can get if Dumbledore takes you along with him. She dropped her voice to whisper. Couldn't we make some more? Asked Hermione, Ron asked Harry, ignoring Hermione. It'd be great to have a stock of it. Have a look in the book. One sec. Son just got in trouble, so. Okay. Now we're on the top of page 518. Okay. Since Harry pulled his copy of Advanced Potion Making out of his bag and looked up Felix Felicis. Blimey, it's seriously complicated, he said, running an eye down the list of ingredients. And it takes 6 months. You've got to let it stew. Typical, said Ron. Harry was about to put his book away again when he noticed the corner of the page folded down. Turning to it, he saw the Sectempara spell, captioned for enemies, that he had marked a few weeks previous. He had still not found out what it did, mainly because he did not want to test it around Hermione, but he was considering trying it out on McLaggen next time he came up behind him unawares. The only person who was not particularly pleased to see Katie Bell back at school was Dean Thomas, because he would no longer be required to fill her place as chaser. He took the blow stoically enough when Harry told him, merely grunting and shrugging, but Harry had a distinct feeling as he walked away that Dean and Seamus were muttering mutinously behind his back. The following fortnight, 2 weeks, saw the best Quidditch practices Harry had known as captain. His team was so pleased to be rid of McLaggen, so glad to have Katie back at last, that they were flying extremely well. Jenny did not seem at all upset about the breakup with Dean. On the contrary, she was the life and soul of the team. Her imitations of Ron, anxiously bobbing up and down in front of the goalposts as a quaffle sped toward him, or of Harry bellowing orders at McLaggen before being knocked out cold, kept them all highly amused. Harry, laughing with the others, was glad to have an innocent reason to look at Jenny. He had received several more bludgeons injuries during practice because he had not been keeping his eyes on the snitch. The battle still raged inside his head. Ginny or Ron? Sometimes he thought that the post-lavender Ron might not mind so much if he asked Ginny out, but then he remembered Ron's expression when he had seen her kissing Dean, and was sure that Ron would consider it base treachery if Harry so much as held her hand. Yet Harry could not help himself talking to Ginny, laughing with her, walking back from practice with her. However much his conscience ached, he found himself wondering how best to get her on her own. It would have been ideal if Slughorn had given another of his little parties, for Ron would not be around, but unfortunately Slughorn seemed to have given them up. Once or twice Harry considered asking for Hermione's help, but he did not think he could stand seeing the smug look on her face. He thought he caught it sometimes when Hermione spotted him staring at Ginny, or laughing at her jokes. And to complicate matters, he had a nagging worry that if he didn't do it, somebody else was sure to ask Ginny out soon. He and Ron were at least agreed on the fact that she was too popular for her own good. In all, the temptation to make another gulp of Felix Felicis was becoming stronger by the day, for surely this was a case for, as Harmony put it, tweaking the circumstances. The balmy days slid gently through May, and Ron seemed to be there at Harry's shoulder every time he saw Ginny. Harry found himself longing for a stroke of luck that would somehow cause Ron to realize that nothing would make him happier than his best friend and his sister falling in love, falling for each other, to leave them alone together longer than a few seconds. There seemed no chance of either while the final Quidditch game of the season was looming. Ron wanted to talk tactics with Harry all the time and had little thought for anything else. Okay, that's where we're going to stop reading today. So, Idealistas, I would like you to look at the question for today. Let me check and make sure. The question is, to please write a summary of what happened, okay? So please write a summary of what happened on those pages, and if you don't have the book, just listen to me reading, okay? All right.